It's finally time to spout opinions about something I am quite frankly not technically qualified to judge, at least from experience. I don't have many 5-star constellations, but I can do math and research. However, they will not be judged on damage alone. Ease of access and ease of use matters, especially when 99% of us will never have more than 1 or 2 constellations for any given 5-star, so a C1 being extremely powerful is a pretty big deal, at least for most of us again. Mona's Constellation 4. As a support, Mona can be insane in the right team, such as the Morgana team for example. C4 gives every party member who damages an enemy debuffed by Mona's Omen a 15% crit chance buff to the attack that hits it. We all know how valuable crit is, and when you're attacking an enemy with Omen, you really want to ensure that you're critting to be able to make the most out of it and keep your damage consistent. However, if you're running the Morgana team, and your Ganyu already has a Capto crit rate with the Blizzard Strayer set bonus, then this is wasted, but you can account for that when you're building your Ganyu and change your gear accordingly. Ayaka's Constellation 2. This constellation has the potential to increase Ayaka's damage up to 40% in the optimal situation, and given that Ayaka in her best builds is basically just a burst machine that massacres everything in that one burst, it's basically a total damage increase. So despite that massive increase for a Constellation 2, why is it only number 9? Well, it requires a stationary target that is large to be able to actually be hit by all 3 clouds simultaneously, but when it does, it absolutely rips apart everything. But sometimes one or both of the extra clouds gets a call and realizes that their planet needs them and just flies off. It does, however, also increase general usability on split up groups of enemies that are not being sucked in by something like Venti. And if this was more reliable, this would easily skyrocket to near the top of the list, if not the top of the list, for being so potent early on in her constellation. Klee's Constellation 2. Defense Shred is an incredibly valuable DPS tool that can be utilized by every character in the game and is only offered by a small handful of them, that being Lisa's A4, Ayaka at C4, Klee at C2, Raiden Shogun C2 but only for her own burst, and Razor at C4. Klee ties with Lisa for the longest duration of all the defense shredding buffs, and she's only just behind Ayaka, who also only has a very low duration of 6 seconds. Combine that with a second skill charge that she can use at any time, making her defense shred one of the most easily usable ones out there with the highest amount of uptime, with the added bonus of her also being a pyro character, being able to fulfill the pyro resonance. Kazuha's Constellation 2. He's already an incredibly powerful support unit, offering massive amounts of elemental damage to your entire party and providing viridescent resistance shred, but now with C2 on top of that, not only is he buffing his own elemental mastery, which is increasing his already powerful swirl damage and elemental damage buff even further, but giving that 200 EM to your entire party, which will buff them immensely given that you can already use Kazuha as a pyro applicator if you infuse his burst with pyro. There's really not much else to say here. He's already a top tier support at C0. C2 just makes him even crazier. Zhongli's Constellation 2. We all know Zhongli is the ignore game mechanics Archon. His shield is a thick boy, and most enemies can hardly even get through just one of these things by the time it's off cooldown again, let alone 2 of the damn things. But aside from just offering him 2 shields, it also has the added benefit of being able to skip his lengthy skill casting animation and instead use his burst as your main or sole applicator of his shields, and then using your skill only as a backup when one breaks early, or if you just want to refresh it during a monster's downtime. Because everyone likes dropping rocks on some hilly churl peasants, this just lets you do it with an added benefit. And for those times that you're playing a team where Zhongli's pillars can interfere with your reactions, such as Melt Ganyu, using the burst only will ensure that you don't have any pillars lying around causing unwanted crystallized reactions and eating up your pyro status. Hu Tao's Constellation 1, a very relevant constellation to right now. Everyone is always asking themselves, C1 Hu Tao or Homa, because we all know how powerful this C1 is, and it's a C1, so it's actually something we can get and not just fantasize about. The C1 from a pure damage point of view increases her damage by roughly 20% with the charge attack dash cancel over the C0 jump canceling. But more importantly, it makes Hu Tao significantly easier to play and safer, increasing her overall quality of life by a large amount since you'll be much more mobile dash canceling than jump canceling in place. which I shouldn't need to tell you is good for a character that thrives on being near death all the time. Raiden Shogun's Constellation 2, another early powerhouse here. For a C2, this Constellation is insane. 60% defense ignore, which is slightly different from Shred, is more than twice the value of the highest defense shred we have in the game from Ayaka's C4. This increases the damage of her burst and overall DPS by around 40%, and unlike Ayaka's C2, which can whiff, this cannot. It's just a straight, no-nonsense damage increase, giving unheard of amounts of DPS for such an early Constellation. If you're someone who enjoys running Raiden hypercarry teams, then this Constellation should definitely be a goal of yours to obtain. Xiao's Constellation 6. So you like Xiao's damaging dash? Well, how does having 2 skill charges sound? What about 3 skill charges? How about infinite? In the right scenario against the right enemies, this is probably the highest constant damage you'll ever see out of a single character. Xiao doesn't even need overpowered supports like Xingqiu to do this insane level of damage either. But what he does need at C6 is at least 2 enemies, and that's the one thing holding this Constellation back from just being insane, among a few other usability issues. It may not be a huge requirement, but one that will occasionally be unavailable during certain floors of the Spiral Abyss. When he gets 2 enemies in his plunging attacks, he gets to use a skill multiple times for free in a short window for an insane 537.2% damage, plus a 45% bonus from his A4 after you get it going. In the right scenario, this C6 will just destroy everything and anything in his path. Ganyu Constellation 6. Her charge attacks, they're already nukes. The only downside to Ganyu is the charge time on her blooms, and even then, you just slap her in a party with Zhongli and delete everything without a care in the world, or just permafreeze everything with Mona and Venti. But if you have C6, not only are you going to be pumping out massive amounts of energy with her extra skill charges, mass casualties around you, and her C1, but you're getting 2 quick bursts of 622% bloom damage, plus 264% at level 9 or 280 with a crown skill, plus another proc of that skill damage when they inevitably detonate. And as if that raw damage isn't enough on its own, some of that damage can even be melted. Probably not all of it, because that's a ridiculous amount of cryo damage coming in all at once, but at least some of it. And given Ganyu's high damage and imposed short lifespan on all living things around her, there's a good chance not many things will ever survive the initial burst of her C6, and outside of sustained combat like the Spiral Abyss, you'll likely never see her actual charge animation again in regular gameplay. And I'm gonna be completely honest, this C6, it's really good, but it is pretty much carried by the fact that C0 Ganyu is so strong. When you look on paper, this C6 isn't nearly as strong as someone like Xiao's, or Eula's Constellation 6. Look, she may not be as good of a unit overall as some of those who have put before her on this list, but her C6 is a straightforward massive damage increase that not only increases her damage floor, but has the added benefit of making her burst scale off of not only attack but US dollars. But seriously, it drastically increases her damage ceiling while doing nothing to change her actual playstyle to achieve this. You can choose to see that as either a pro or con compared to characters like Xiao or Ganyu C6 that do actually change their playstyle, but this makes Eula extremely simple to use across all constellation levels. At C0, Eula can expect to gain about 14 stacks of her burst if she's not interrupted. C6 starts you off with 5 stacks already just as a base, and gives every stack you gain a 50% chance to add an extra stack on top of that, giving an average outcome of 26 stacks, potentially up to a maximum of 30 with some RNG, or potentially less. And at level 13, this burst at 30 stacks is going to do a whopping 5,653% damage. Basically, nothing is going to survive that. However, aside from just making the big number bigger, it does also lower the chance that you'll be screwed over by mobs moving away from you early on. Those 5 initial stacks and faster stacking overall will allow you to detonate her burst early if you need to, should the mob stop cooperating with you. I'd like to give some honorable mentions to constellations like Child C6, Yoimiya's C4, and Kazuha's C6, constellations that are not considered to be universally good, but can alter those characters' playstyles to be more in line with staying on field 100% of the time. They may not be good, but for those who want them, they're a big deal. In their most optimized team comps, these constellations usually mean nothing, but they do give a player who really loves that one character a chance to use that character as if they were a selfish on-field DPS like someone like Xiao or Ganyu, and that is good for those people. I really want C6 Kazuha. I just want to use him as a main DPS because I think it sounds fun. Now for the overall order of this list, I think it's really subjective and what you value personally. Most of the constellations on here are extremely powerful and some of them are just held back by being situational. Even if someone like Xiao's C6 is not exactly asking a lot of you, it is still a requirement you must fulfill. And again, this was not based purely on math and damage increases alone, because if it was, the list would look a little bit different. If you feel strongly about the ordering or someone else that deserved a spot on this list, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, thanks for watching. Patreon in the description below if you want to support me. We've got a public Discord now if you'd like to join that, and subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next one.